Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you. That's depending where you are in the world. I'm here live in London doing the nighttime devotion from the devotional Christ Triumphant. The title today, God begins anew with Seth. Genesis 4:25 to 5, verse 3. God hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. Adam begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. To Adam was given another son, to be the inheritor of the divine promise, the heir of the spiritual birthright. The name Seth, given to this son, signified appointed or compensation, for, said the mother, God have appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. Seth was of more noble stature than Cain or Abel, and resembled Adam more closely than did his other sons. He was a worthy character, following in the steps of Abel, yet he inherited no more natural goodness than did Cain. Concerning the creation of Adam, it is said, in the likeness of God made he him. But Adam, after the fall, begat a son in his own likeness, after his image. The Sabbath was honored by all the children of Adam that remained loyal to God. But Cain and his descendants did not respect the day on which God had rested. They chose their own time for labor and for rest, regardless of Jehovah's express command. For some time, the two classes remained separate. The race of Cain, spreading from the place of their first settlement, dispersed over the plains and the valleys where the children of Seth had dwelt. And the latter, in order to escape from their contaminating influence, withdrew to the mountains and there made their home. But in the lapse of time, they ventured little by little to mingle with the inhabitants of the valleys. This association was productive of the worst results. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. The children of Seth, attracted by the beauty of the daughters of Cain's descendants, displeased the Lord by intermarrying with them. Many of the worshippers of God were beguiled into sin by the allurements that were now constantly before them, and they lost their peculiar holy character. For nearly 1,000 years, Adam lived among his descendants, a witness to the results of sin. Faithfully, he sought to stem the tide of evil. He witnessed the widespreading corruption that was finally to cause the destruction of the world by a flood. And though the sentence of death pronounced upon him by his Maker had at first appeared terrible, yet after beholding for nearly 1,000 years the results of sin, he felt that it was merciful in God to bring to an end a life of suffering and sorrow. So the title, God Begins Anew with Seth, indicates that Cain killed Abel. So God gave Adam and Eve another son, and they called him Seth. And as is said, the name means appointed or compensation. God had appointed another instead of Abel to replace him. But it made a point here which was very significant. Seth resembled Adam very much. It was his likeness. And it's not so much just how he looked, but also in his character. Now, the problem here is that Adam was created in the likeness of God. Seth was created in the likeness of Adam, which would mean that the weaknesses in Adam's character were all passed on to Seth, because Seth resembled him, or as they say in the West Indies, favored him. So where Adam fell, or shall I say where the reasons that Adam fell also affected Seth. And then in time, when Seth and all his family grew, etc., and they went and lived, didn't want to live in the same areas as Cain and be contaminated by their ways, because they tried to live God's ways. But eventually, men of Seth's tribe saw the women of Cain's side, and the men took to the women, and the people intermingled, which again diluted down God's characteristics in that society. And so people weren't of God anymore. And the whole tribe, as you might want to say, of Cain, basically contaminated all of them. And so, as is said, Adam eventually realized that it was a good thing that the flood should end everything as it had been, because society had become so decrepit and sinful that God had to end it with the flood. As it says here, he felt that it was merciful in God to bring an end to the life of suffering and sorrow. And your life would not be filled with suffering and sorrow if you had God in your life. If you knew him and if you trusted him, you wouldn't suffer or have sorrow, because you would know it too. And so whatever affects you now is insignificant to how heaven will affect you when you get there. Keep your head up. Stay faithful. God bless you.